Firstly, wow, that was some blockbuster. Incredible. What a world, what a world. I think we can say that as Wicked Witch. Well, a couple of quotes. Wicked is an awesome spectacle that pops and enchants on the big screen, an absolutely stunning vision. John Chu has gifted us a musical masterpiece that is much more than we could have ever expected. I mean, the reviews are just keep coming. John Chu, let's start with John. John is someone you've worked... did you go to film school with John?
Yeah, so John and I have known each other for almost 25 years. We met at USC Film School, and we bonded over our love of musicals. He asked me to shoot his short film while we were in college, and it was a musical, and it was pre-Moulin Rouge, pre-Chicago. It was at a time studios weren't making musicals, and all we wanted to do was grow up and make musicals. So, and we've spent the last 20 years figuring out how to tell a story through dance and through music.
And you obviously you've done a whole series of things that, like you say, that was all musical and dance.
Yeah, I've done four if you count Wicked as two movies, because there's a second part. I've done four musicals in a row.
Amazing. And of course, one of those collaborators it was Chris Scott, the choreographer. Mm-hmm. How was that? How did that? I mean, did all of that previous work obviously feel like prep towards this? Yeah. This is the big one, right?
So I'm really lucky because John and I and Chris Scott, the choreographer, Chris sort of joined our team 15 years ago. And the way John works is he's just a completely emotional storyteller. So he doesn't, I can't move my chair like that because there's a camera there, right?
It's all preset.
Okay, so John is just this emotional storyteller. So when we get a script, when we start talking about a script, all we do is talk about emotion and humanity. We don't talk about anything technical. We know the technical will come, but it is about themes and ideas and what a character feels like in any moment. And we go through the script and we talk about things in terms of just one or two words, like yearning or being watched, or sometimes it's a question. What does it feel like to be looked at? And we do this I've been on this movie for 3.5 years, almost 4 years at this point. And so that's all we talk about. And then I go to sleep at night and things just settle into me. And then I pop up in the middle of the night with ideas. And those ideas turn into technical things like one idea we talked about very early on was the idea of good is not good in Wicked and evil is not evil, that the light is not the light and the darkness is not the darkness. And so, we talked a lot about nature and we wanted this movie to feel real and tangible and raw in many ways, even though it's this big epic world. We wanted it to be very intimate. And so one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this idea that the sun would always rise for Glinda and set for Elphaba. And in doing that, the sun could become our spotlight. And this is based off of a musical, a Broadway show. And so I wanted there to be theatricality to the lighting, but feel real. And so when the sun became my spotlight, that changed everything to me. And we ended up with almost 6,000 lighting cues in the whole movie.
Had you seen the stage show before you got involved with the script?
I had not seen the stage show, but my father, who is a playwright, I grew up in New York City to artist parents. My dad was a playwright and my mother was a dancer and a singer. And we didn't have any money. I grew up in a tenement apartment building with the bathtub in the kitchen in one bedroom with 4 of us and 3 cats and a dog, 300 square feet. But there were all these artists that always were coming through our house. And so I've totally lost my thought, but there were all these artists coming through my house. And so we ended up I'd actually lost my
It's
cough
kind of in your
completely.
blood, so musicals.
Oh,
that
so
kind of
musicals are in my
theatre
blood,
stuff
yes.
is in your blood.
Yes.
Right.
What was your question?
Well,
though?
if you'd seen the show, so
Oh,
what,
if I
when
had
you
seen the
came
show,
to
that's
it,
right. So my dad,
it
I
happens to me all the time.
loved.
It
We have
happens to
plenty
me
of
all the
time. I loved. Somehow, even though we had no money, they'd always figure out how to get us to shows. So I grew up going to musicals, and so. And the very last show, my sister and I came to. My sister and my dad came to London when she graduated from college, and my dad had a heart attack 2 months later and died. And the last show he saw was Wicked, and so I've got a picture of him in the West End standing in front. It's like one of the last photographs I have of him. Right. So it's like knowing that was the last show he saw is pretty special to me.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but it's an image. It's a calling, perhaps.
Yeah.
To that. The project, the Wicked itself obviously had a fan base. I mean, it's already in place? Is it any, in a lot of those kind of projects, fans are always going to be. There's always going to be something about it that people don't like. But was it at all daunting to kind of take that on at the beginning, knowing how popular it was as a project?
Yeah, you want to. I mean.
To do it justice.
You do want to do it justice. You want the fans to be excited and want to love this movie as much as they love the show. And it is a massive fan base. The fans have seen it. I've talked to people who have seen it 50, 60 times, which is incredible. So making sure that we stayed true to that, but it's true to the feeling of Wicked. It's not true to exactly what they did on stage. I mean, we're very lucky. We're a movie, and so we get to go into close-ups, and we get to move the camera 360 degrees. You get to see the other side that the audience has never seen before. And that was part of our language. We shot many 360-degree shots, which is why we had so many lighting cues in the end. And we shot on real, tangible sets. We shot here, which I'm so grateful for. Like, the crew that I worked with here I love them so much. We just had a cast and crew screening this morning, and I got to see everyone, and I just love the crew I got to work with, and I'm incredibly grateful. But we shot on 17 stages here, and on 3 different studios. We shot at Leavesden, we shot at Platinum Stages, and then Sky in Elstree. Universal we were the first movie to shoot there, and we occupied all of their stages except for one. And all of our sets were built from fire lane to fire lane, and from the floor to the Reds, and we had 4 huge backlots built in Ivanhoe there was no place to house these sets, and they rented Turf Farm. We rented Turf Farm, and built these sets Shiz and Emerald City were the size of 4 American football fields each.
Okay. So, we'll get to lighting, how you start even to conceive lighting, that sort of stuff. How much prep? You say you've been on it on the project almost kind of end to end for 4 years
Almost,
now.
it'll be 4 years in March.
How much prep time did you have from when it all started off? Because it was around COVID. It kicked off in COVID, didn't it?
It did, and it's sort of ebbed and flowed, because originally we weren't making the movie here. We were going to make it in Atlanta,
right?
And then we didn't, and we paused for about 6 months. And in that pause, John and I were still prepping and working with Nathan Crowley, the production designer, and it was during COVID, so that was all remote. So Nathan was in New York. I live in Portland, Maine, and John was in LA. So we'd have these long meetings on Zoom. And then we got to London in June of 22, and we started shooting 2 weeks before Christmas of that year. So it was about 18 weeks of prep, I think, on the ground.
Right. And shot for how long? Because you shot both.
We shot both
parts.
Movies. It was 155 shooting days.
Okay, that doesn't sound that much.
It's not crazy.
Not for something like that.
Yeah, and there is a second movie, and the scale of the sets were so massive. Me and the Electrics, we worked 7 days a week. I took 7 days off from January 2nd to when the strike hit.
Okay.
But that was, and I say that, but that was like my incredible special time. Like that was my quiet time. The weekend pre-lights were like just for me. I could take the script and walk around the sets, and I'd pretend I was Elphaba, or I'd pretend I was Glinda, and it was like, okay, how do I feel in this environment? And that started to motivate the lighting and what the intention was. And I played a little bit with lensing on those days, but it was mostly about how I felt in the space as if I were one of the characters.
I mean, apart from the stage production, just talk quickly about maybe when you're starting to come up with those ideas. Apart from the stage production, were there any other references you drew from? I mean, there's obviously with production design, which is glorious, but there's a lot of that kind of a lot of the original 1939 film in there, the kind of Art Deco of Emerald City. Was there anything that you had as reference?
I mean, I grew up watching The Wizard of Oz, as most of us did. I was allowed to stay up as late as I wanted with my dad watching movies. And my earliest movie, one of my earliest films that I remember watching was an American baseball movie called The Natural, which we ended up using as a reference for when the Emerald City explodes. But I didn't watch them. Once John called me and said, "I know what our next movie is going to be. It's going to be Wicked." I didn't watch The Wizard of Oz at all at that point, because I wanted it to have our own. John kept saying it needs to be our own world, and it needs to be something like no one's ever seen before, and make the choices that are not obvious. So I didn't watch that. But what I did do was read the original books.
Okay.
And the original book, L. Frank Baum's books, have just these amazingly rich color description. Almost every paragraph has a color description, and every color has symbolism. And so then, with that in mind, I decided we'd use different colors to light each scene throughout the whole movie. So I used every color of the rainbow. And during our 18 weeks of prep, we did lighting and camera tests and makeup tests and production design tests and costume tests almost every week.
Right.
And so we figured it took a long time to find out what was our exact pink for Glinda's sunrise, and that ended up being a mole beam, a 20K mole beam, dimmed down 45% with 1 3/4 magenta on it. Okay. So but everything was all those choices, like, it took a lot of prep to get to those places.
But having time to do that is pretty special. That's great. There we go. Obviously, your relationship with John is pretty special by now. I mean, can you tell us a bit about what John brings to you, and in a sort of respect of you knowing what he wants beforehand? You know, does he want to shoot 360 all the time? Is it about long takes? Is the kind of musical stuff? Is it very singular, so the choreography has to work? And do you know that going in, or is there something?
John is very much, we prep. We draw storyboards. We went into Unreal and we looked at things. We pre-lit the sets in Unreal, some of the sets in Unreal. We had previs do certain sequences on, and then it's just like he goes, okay, we're not looking at any of that while we shoot.
Okay.
And he goes in and he wants the actors to sort of take over. And so the Ozdas Ballroom, for instance, he wanted to shoot Elphaba's close-up as she walks down the stairs and does her whole dance and ends with Glinda. But he didn't want to do a rehearsal, and he didn't want her to ever walk into the set until we were rolling, because he wanted her to feel that for the first time, and he wanted to shoot her close-up first.
Right.
And she's wearing this huge hat. And the take is 10 minutes long. And we don't actually know how long the take is because we've never seen her do it. We've gone to dance rehearsal. We saw her do it during dance rehearsal, but of course things change after dance rehearsal. So I was very lucky. or insistent. I got our Steadicam operator on for 10 weeks of prep. So he was there the whole time with me, and his name's Karsten Jacobsen, and he's Danish, and he became a Steadicam operator because he was a PA on a dance, like So You Think You Can Dance in Denmark. And he was 18, the Steadicam operator hurt himself. He's a very big, tall guy, and they said, put this on, and he became a Steadicam operator. And
That's how they all do it.
It's
all by accident.
But he learned, right? He learned on a dance show.
Right.
And so he was at dance rehearsal every day, learning the choreography. And so when we do, so this is it was roughly 10 minutes. So we bring her down the stairs, and we want the scene. John said to me, I want the scene to feel like, what does it feel like to have everybody looking at you and laughing at you? And so we shot her on a 65 millimeter lens. That was her hero lens. And we pull her down the stairs, and then we start going around her, and there are pauses, and then the camera moves more, and at some point it spins, and our amazing focus puller, Lewis Humes, he pulls off. He doesn't use a monitor. He's standing right next to the camera, so he's going around for 10 minutes, 360 degrees, and his to me his focus pulling intuition the storytelling of it is just amazing. Like, he could feel when he needed to be just a little go to Ariana, or when he needed to be with Cynthia, and sometimes we would just be on Cynthia, and sometimes it would pull a little wider, and we knew this was going to all get cut up because we need Ariana's side, and we need reactions to build, and we need mediums, and we need wides, but the second we got to the end of that shot, and all the while, David Smith, our gaffer, we have 2 wireless DMX mini desks, and he's on one of them, I'm on the other, moving the sliders up and down, and we have, even one of our ADs was doing one of the channels. And so we're doing this, and then you see suddenly Cynthia cry, and it's not scripted that she's supposed to cry at all. And then you see Ari touch her face and wipe the tear away. And when we saw that, it's just like the entire team just needed to be a space for Cynthia to feel that moment. And if I had said to John, which at first I did say, to be completely honest, you're crazy to want to do it this way. How are we going to do this? She has this huge hat on. We'll never know if we're, until we see her. Because we had a stand-in, but the color of the skin, even though it was the same makeup, different skin tones read differently. And then our stand-in didn't have the same size. The hat didn't fit her the same way. So it was really hard to do. But you see that, and you feel that moment, and it's all that work is worth it.
I mean, it's incredible, and the moment certainly lands. There's a lot of trust in that, especially if you're not going to kind of do those rehearsals and go for that instinct. Go for the instinct to rely on Karsten to feel that out.
But he knew, he was with me for 10 weeks, and we also, on Wednesday afternoons, I had something called Movie Club.
Right.
And the gaffer, David Smith, said to me, you're crazy, we have too much work to do versus watch movies. And then later on, he said to me, it was amazing and worth it. But Movie Club was not about Wicked. Movie Club was about watching movies and talking to each other as artists and collaborators and storytellers. So it was me, it was the gaffer, it was the Steadicam operator, Key Grip, and Marin, who was she did a lot of research and development for me. So it was the 5 of us sitting in my office watching movies that had nothing to do with Wicked. And we just got to know each other. And so by the time we made the movie, we had a common language to share, and everything just worked much more smoothly. So for Karsten, he knew what we were doing. He watched Ariana and Cynthia at dance rehearsal. He understood what character they were playing already. So it was, the prep time on this movie was crucial to how we made it.
it's such a big, it's a big thing. You haven't worked with Carsten before. How did you come about? How did you find Carsten?
I haven't worked with anyone before. This was my first time ever coming to England, period. So, you, and I didn't even get to meet them in person, right? We had to hire, I mean, the film industry in LA is not great, but you guys are very lucky here because it's marvelous. And so, but everyone gets booked so early. So I had to meet people before I ever got here. So Carsten and I had 2 or 3 Zoom or FaceTime or whatever before I hired him. I met a lot of people, and knowing that it was going to be such a crucial the camera movement. John keeps saying we've been all over the place the last few weeks because we've had lots of premieres, and he keeps saying this is a musical, but it's about the silence, it's about the restraint, it's when and he talks about each department, and it's about when the camera isn't moving for him. It's about when silence hits in a musical, and he said those are the things to lean into.
Well, that's where the drama is, or that's where the story is. I guess it's expanded by the songs, but it's do their storytelling part, but it's the bits in between. Absolutely.
I mean, even in a musical, he stops and starts the music, which is not a typical choice, and I love the way he tells stories with music.
You mentioned David Smith. You hadn't worked with him before. Obviously, he's a fairly well-known face. Tell us how was that relationship? I mean, you obviously built it by watching things that Dave said he didn't have time for, but it sounds like so I love that. I'm going to steal that. That's great. What was your process with Dave, and how did that work out?
So I met Dave because Mark Platt, our producer, works with him all the time, and Mark just really highly recommended him. So that was amazing. I mean, he walked into my office on the first day, and he's like, let's go up to the art department. He's like, these sets are much bigger than anything anyone knows. And so we did, and we started tearing through the plans, and many of the sets didn't have any places for our lights.
Right.
And
brilliant.
So, I mean, like that's not what they think about. That's my job.
Sure.
So like in the throne room, for instance, everyone keeps going, how did you do that set extension where the ceiling goes up? That's all real. So we've got all these concentric circles getting smaller and smaller and smaller to a skylight at the top. But there was no space between them, so it would have just disappeared into blackness. So we ended up, I think it's 10 inches, maybe a little bit, maybe it's 18 inches. I can't remember what we decided in the end. But we had art department space them out so we could have room to put lights in there. And I mean, that's just one example. Every single set we had to, and we had to work with either set deck to find the right lamps, or with the Wizard's Head. That's I can't remember how tall it is, 15 feet or 20 feet big, and it's fully puppeted. It fully moves, and the curtains were hung. And I've got this great picture of me and Dave like looking at these curtains in a different stage than we actually shot on, and they were so thick, and there was no lighting built into them, and so. But we did have this little miniature, which was 18 inches or something. And during one of our camera tests, he gave me a tube, just a little teeny fluorescent tube, and we started looking to where we would want to put the lighting in. Because at first we wondered if we wanted the art department to raise the floor so we could light under the floor. But while we were taking the tube from the side, I realized on the sides that was where the drama would be, but we didn't want fluorescent tubes, and so Dave came up with this idea that we got these huge bulbs, these 200-watt theatrical bulbs that you can only get from Los Angeles to bring in, and the idea of the circus is built into everything, and so art department went for that because they, obviously are concerned about the aesthetics as well, and so they built these galvanized units that held 5 bulbs each, and we had 40 of them. We had 200 bulbs in there.
Okay, wow. So you mentioned working with Nathan Crowley, the production designer, he's worked with Chris Nolan a fair amount. But that was a whole part of that relationship, I guess, in prep, is that you're all working together. Obviously, the collaboration is working.
I describe Nathan and my relationship as a brother-sister relationship, where we both were like really wanted things very badly, and then once when we sat down and when we sat down and talked things through, we both realized we both could have it all. And so Nathan said to me at one point, somewhere late in production, he's like, I've never had a cinematographer in my art department as much as you are.
Really?
But I mean, the sets were massive.
Yeah.
There was no way not to be in there. And the art department was huge, and we'd go from station to station with each artist drawing each set and really try to understand them. I mean, the Shiz set was so big, and there was no way to get our techno crane in. We had to use actually one of Dave's construction cranes to lift the techno crane onto the set over the wall. So it was there's nothing to do except live in the art department.
Yeah, for sure. The technical stuff, you started testing on a mini LF.
Yes.
But you went up to 65, Lex 65. Why was that? Just tell us why.
So I started my tests at Panavision in the spring of 21. So that was 14 months, 15 months before I got to London. And I don't know what I can't actually remember the whole process, but John and I were like, okay, we'll shoot on the LF. And I started talking to Dan Sasaki at Panavision in Woodland Hills about lenses. And I couldn't tell him what movie it was on, but I started showing him images that I was interested, John and I, at first we create a lookbook together, or we a shared album together, and we just throw things in, and then it grows. Nathan then ended up on there, and Paul Taswell and Francis, and we just all share ideas. It's just like this big sandbox of ideas. And so I had all these images, so I started sharing them with Dan Sasaki, and he's like, well, I've got this idea. I've got one prototype. It's this idea for these new anamorphic 1.3 times squeeze lenses. He's like, would you want to, work on developing them with me, and we'll figure out how, we'll build the things into them that you want.
Right.
And so that was when we were shooting in Atlanta, and so 6 months earlier than we ended up being in London. And so when Dan, but then one day I had, at that point, I think I had 2 lenses, and I just decided I'd line up every camera, and some, weren't released cameras yet. And so I'm at Panavision Woodland Hills doing these tests, and then John and I go to Company 3 and we look at the projection, and I only had one shot of the Alexa 65, and the lens didn't cover the sensor, and John and I looked at each other and we're like, okay, we need to shoot much larger than we were planning. And so I called Dan Sasaki, and he's like, I can't make these lenses for you in your time frame. And then the day we pushed, I called him, it was October 3rd, 21, and I called him, I'm like, can you make them now? He's like, let's go for it. And when we were shooting, we still didn't have a full set of lenses on our first day. We were like getting lenses in as we went. We needed 3 sets, one for second unit and 2 for our A and B cameras. And so we never fully tested the lenses, but I love them. And no one else has shot with them. At least that's what Panavision has told me. They're supposedly locked in a closet here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So I hope you've got your name engraved on the sets.
I don't know. I don't think it might say Gershwin on it, which was our code name.
Code name.
Yeah.
But you played with or at least what Dan gave you anyway, was a coating adjustment. Is that right? To warm
on the second set, we
flares.
played with a coating adjustment. The first set it doesn't have that coating adjustment, but our B set did have a coating adjustment.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you could pick and choose.
Yeah.
And what are those lenses called?
We called them the Unlimiteds, and they became the after the lyric. And then they became the Ultra Panatar 2s, but they're not the production lens. What developed is not what we used.
Okay.
Like what they are now producing as their Ultra
So
Panatar 2s. They're its own thing.
Okay, so anybody finds those. And did you use any filtration?
Quarter Classic Soft quarter glimmer glass sometimes.
Okay.
It just depended on the set, really.
Was there a rule? I was going to
There
ask you
was no
about.
rule.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Was there something that you did with you and John that there was any kind of rule book? Was there a rule
Yeah,
book?
the rule was break the rules. It
Okay.
was that, I think I said this, but make the choices that are not the obvious choice.
Okay.
If you think you should shoot on this lens, go one lens wider or one lens tighter. Okay. It was always like make sure we're making some weird choices so that because Oz is this delightful, wondrous place, and it's not of this world. And we obviously wanted some sort of old Hollywood feel to it, but we wanted our own version of Oz, and we created our own version of what Technicolor was. And and so it was, okay, if you're going to be at this, if you think you should be at eye level, let's just drop down a couple of inches. So just make things just a little bit off.
Okay, love that. Your key grip, Guy Micheletti.
Oh, yeah.
Had you obviously you hadn't worked with Guy either?
No.
I mean, he'd worked with Greg, and he'd done both the Dunes, and he'd worked with Dion Beebe on Mermaid, I think.
Because he did Little Mermaid too, so he did Dion Beebe.
Okay.
Yep.
That's some team you've got there again. That's that's something else. So what sort of provision did you have grip-wise, and wire cams, drones? What were the sort of things that were your base?
So Guy's the best. I called Greg and asked him who to hire, and he said Guy. So Guy, I mean, talk about a grip who just tells a movie with his soul.
Right.
I mean, he is the most amazing crane operator I have ever met in my life, and he is so incredibly passionate. And does
he pickle?
Yes.
He does. Okay.
Yep.
So he's at the front end, so he's watching what's going on.
And there were so many times during the movie I would look over and see him, and he was just crying. I don't even know how he was doing anything because he was crying so heavily. I mean, he was so fully invested in this movie. And it's funny because like every person is either an Elphaba or a Glinda. And Guy was Elphaba all the way, and he on one of our cranes, on our 45-foot crane, it had to be recabled 3 times. He said he had never been on a movie where he worked a crane so hard in his life. John he likes these big epic moves that either start or end in just like these very subtle things, and it's so specific. And Guy just got John fully, and anyway, I love him. Love him. I mean, I love them all. I love David. I love Guy. I love Karsten. I love Lewis. I love Simon Finney, who is our B operator, who is just marvelous in every way I can possibly imagine.
Was there a lot of 2-camera? I mean, he's doing those long takes, long singular takes. They might be 360. So how would that work?
So Simon would do things like end up in a closet just to get one teeny tiny little moment,
right.
Or he would find himself and dress himself in this amazing set deck so you can't see him, but he's in a lot of these shots. But he somehow he'd come up to me and he's like, Alice, I've got a shot. And I'm like, okay, let's go look. But he would always find it, and I think there's so much detail, right? Like art department and costume design and everything has so much detail that and so he was able to add those little bits of detail. There's this line. I did this movie called In the Heights with John, and one of the lines is about little details that tell the world who we are. And that's how I feel about Simon. He was able to find those little details. And I actually feel that way about the lighting too, and the electric team. Like, the costumes are so meticulous. The pleating in Elphaba's black black costumes, and in movie 2 there's even more black costumes, took months to do. And I have a woman who is platinum blonde in all shades of pink next to a woman who is green in black, and they occupy many of the same frames. And it took me the full 18 weeks to figure out how to light them so that I didn't have to power window things. And be able to balance things, but that you still could find all those details, or the freckles on Elphaba's face that were so carefully placed by Francis.
That's beautiful. Did Simon find those? Just how do you work with that? Just briefly, does Simon does he bring you those shots, or does John? Is it something that John has in his head about finding another shot, or does it vary?
It varies. Okay. Like it varies, and there were places we had C camera as well.
Right.
But no, Simon went rogue a lot.
Okay.
And that
I love that. I think that's the best.
I think we were very much focused on a camera for everything, and Simon always found something wonderful. So and there are in the big dance numbers, we knew there were moments we needed, and so we would work. We would figure those out.
Yeah, sure. The choreography was something else.
Yeah, something else.
Yeah, I mean, was that a lot of rehearsal?
A lot of rehearsal. Christopher Scott, our choreographer, got to London before anyone else.
Right.
And he built just this marvelous dance team. I do have to say, so there were lots of theaters over in Leicester Square with everyone, and we went from theater to theater, and Mark Platt and John Chu said hello to, gave an introduction. And when we went into the theater that had all the dancers, you have never seen so much energy. They fed us all the time. We were so exhausted. I mean, Ivanhoe, where we shot our backlot, I've got pictures of Lewis and Karsten knee deep in mud. I mean, it was incredibly hard place to work. But the dancers would come, they'd be dancing in the rain, they didn't care, they gave it everything, and you just feed off of that energy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, what a family of collaborators.
Yeah, and Chris, I've spent a lot of time with Chris the last 2 weeks, and just when we look back at our relationship with John, and just even in his dance, right? We all just want to serve the story, want to serve the emotion. And that's all it is for us, is emotion. You can have a technically perfect movie, right? If you walk out of a movie and go, oh, that was technically amazing, then we haven't done our job.
Yeah, for real. Thank you. Anybody? We've probably got a little bit of time for some questions, if anybody's got any questions.
Hi. I work at Company 3, and I'd love to know how you collaborated with Jill in order to achieve the final look of the film.
So, yeah, that's one part I haven't talked about. I actually talked to Jill Bogdanovich today, our DI colorist. So, knowing how very specific color was going to be on this movie, first I went through this big process at Company 3 looking for a dailies colorist. And talked to lots of people and just didn't feel like they quite understood what we were doing. And then I was introduced to Lucy Barber here, and she got it instantly. And we, and within a few weeks, I barely had to give any notes. And sometimes I'd hop on, at the end of the day, I'd hop on a remote session on my iPad and just fine tune some things. But she added so much to the movie. And then Jill I actually hired once we were in post. And that was also sort of a lengthy interview process, trying to find the right colorist for this movie. And one part of the process was Jill came to watch, it was just the assembly. I mean, it was in very rough shape. And we're in our little screening room in editorial in LA. And I'm sitting next to her, it's just the two of us in the theater. And suddenly I'm sitting next to her. And I had watched the assembly once or twice before. I definitely did not get emotional. And she is laughing and crying. And when we end, her face is completely red. And she's like, I have to do this movie. And she has been this amazing collaborator. And much like having Movie Club, Jill and I, since we hadn't worked together, she hadn't worked with John before, Jill and I then spent the full year before we actually colored the movie doing things like going to breakfast and just talking about aesthetics. And she was a painter. She started her career as a painter. And so really talking about art and also humanity and these characters and before we ever touched a frame.
Amazing. Anyone else? They're free, these questions. You don't have to. There's no charge. Anyone?
I heard you might have a question.
You got a question, Matty?
I have a daughter. She's 9, and she grew up on Wicked. Now she was, you're what, 7? Yeah, 6, 7, 8, 7. So she grew up on. She was 6 years old when I got this movie. She would come to pre-light every weekend with me, and she knows every electrician by name. When we left London, I said to her, "What is the thing you miss the most?" And she said, "Weekend pre-lights." So anyway, I've trained her well. So it's actually the first movie I haven't hid the fact that I was a mom, really.
Okay.
And one day I just was like, I'm never going to see her. And so I just started bringing her. And one day she went up to Mark Platt, our producer, who's got 5 kids and something like crazy amount of grandchildren. And he had given her tickets to go see Wicked, and with a friend of hers from the U.S. who came to visit. And she went up to him and she said, "Thank you for letting me go see Wicked, and thank you for letting me come to set today." And he's like, "Well, you can come to set anytime you want." And so that was it. She came to set all the time. I'd be like, "No, this day's going to be really hard," and she's like, "But Mark said I could come." So. Anyway.
Well, that's the way forward.
She also was there. So also visual effects is something I haven't talked about, which is Pablo Hellman. Sorry, I'm just talking since, if you have a question, raise your hand, but I'll just keep talking otherwise. Pablo Hellman, our visual effects supervisor, I met him. He was the second person hired. So I started working with him really early in this process. And my daughter was at all the visual effects reviews with me because the last 8 months of post, I'd go to visual effects reviews and make sure all the lighting was exactly as intended. And so my daughter was there while they developed the flying monkeys, so she feels like the monkeys are hers.
Hers. Great. She's responsible for that. I mean, just the VFX. Oh, there's go on. Kelvin.
Hi. Monster job. I mean, it was huge on scale, but my question is actually quite a small detail. The reflections in the glasses, were they shot clean lenses or replaced reflections, or how did you deal with that?
The glasses were a process. So I have this amazing lens maker who's in this little town in the U.S. who so far is the only lens maker I've been able to find that makes these lenses that don't cast a color on the face and that you can still see through, but you still have the reflection. On this, the first day the lenses, we had done camera tests on all the glasses, but Cynthia picked her own glasses. She picked a lot of the details, like everything about what her ring on her pinky finger, that's her own ring, like very, very, very specific. She went and redressed her side of the bedroom to what Elphaba would have, her version of Elphaba would have in there. And so the glasses were the very last thing she picked. And that didn't give us enough time to replace the lenses. So the first week of the shoot, we had to deal with glasses that had the lenses in that weren't working for us very well. And so it was challenging. It was in the dorm room. And then after that, we had, they got the right glass put in the lenses, and so we were fine. And of course, there's always maybe a moment where they're not fine. So we had a second set of glasses without the lenses in them, but she hated wearing those, so we used the ones with the lenses.
It's a bold choice to use glasses on a lead character.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, is that from? I'm guessing that's from the from the
Yes,
show?
so it's from the show. So she wears glasses in the show. It's very specific to the show.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Alice. Thanks so much. I'm Sarah. We've met in LA, but we'll chat later. Thank you, BSC. This is so exciting. Sorry, I'm kind of freaking out. Can you talk about the library sequence?
Oh, yeah.
The dance sequences are so epic. So, anyway.
So the library, I mean, what part of it? I'll talk about all of it. So the library is 185 feet long, more or less, by 145 feet wide. And again, it's one of those sets that goes all the way up to the ceiling. And we have this wheel. John, Chris, and I, in our exploration, have been playing with gravity for a very long time. We are always trying to figure out how you move a body and have this sort of anti-gravity feel. And then finally we do a movie with a song called Defying Gravity. But when we did a movie called In the Heights, and we do a dance on the side of the building that we used a hydraulic wall for. And so this was a new level of that, which is 3 spinning wheels that spin different directions, different speeds. And we have these ladders going through it. And so how do you move the camera through there? How did the dancers move? John Chu also had a baby while we were doing this scene, so it was up to me and Chris to take over. So we're in this wheel, and we had the rehearsal process. Chris only had one of the wheels to work with. And then 5 days before we started shooting, he had all 3 wheels. And during that 5-day process, it was a lot of, like, where can you hide the camera? Chris, John, and I work in a way where sometimes we're all at dance rehearsals, sometimes Chris is only there, and this time Karsten was with us, and we all film sequences, or we all film, and then just airdrop all our footage to John, and then he cuts it together. And then we go, okay, this works, this doesn't work, we need this angle. But this was another set we didn't have a place to light from. The wheels didn't have any windows on the side, so we asked our department to build in those windows that, so each of the circles has windows in windows between, and then we have the big window at the back. That was always there. But the side windows also gave us places to hide cameras. That was a great place for Simon Finney to hide. So we would, but then we also, this was Guy's one of his biggest challenges was like, how do we move pull the camera back while the wheels are spinning, and you've got Jonathan Bailey like in a split on the back, and we want to do this big pullback. So that was a challenge, and it just, I think we had 5 days total to shoot this sequence. Maybe it was 7, but I'm pretty sure it was 5. And then we also, Karsten did an amazing job. We have a parkour dancer who's doing all these flips in the thing, and we're pulling back, and then the crane needs to flip and then do a push in to meet Johnny on the Jonathan Bailey Fierro on the standing on a library cart. And Chris comes up to, this is the day John wasn't there. So Chris comes up to me, he's like, we have 4 chances to get this right. And I'm like, what do you mean 4? And Chris always does this to me. He's like, the dancer will hurt himself if he does more than 4 times. So we do it 4 times, and the last take was the one that Karsten was able to keep him in the frame the whole time. Okay. So we got it, but it was tricky and stressful.
Was the rotating did you ever separate that out, or was it always attached to the main?
It's completely attached to the main building. And then also one of the last minute things we did during pre-light with this, I forgot, was the whole set was surrounded by blue, and I hated it. And so it was a weekend, and I called Pablo. I said, we're going to do this white. Are you going to be okay with that? And that's what we ended up doing. So we already had a white curtain. It didn't go around the whole set. But then during the, after pre-light, they added more curtains. So we were able to do white around it, which I wanted it to feel like the wondrous, beautiful glow of shiz was coming in into the set.
There's a lot of that. I think a lot of the window treatments feels like it's, I always like that. It should be hot. It should be hotter outside than it is inside. But you work with that flare and actually that contrast, the darkness inside of it as well. So
I loved it. It was. I actually don't like. I mean, I really did. I sat in that set on the weekend pre-light. I'm like, this is just awful. And then for our plates out the window, we had the library exterior put on our shiz set, and then we were able to shoot our plates for when went out that window, the door on our backlot set. But they kept them blown out the way I needed it to be.
Yeah.
Well, or what needed to be, and what was intended.
It's just a bit more of that authenticity. So if it's too, like you say, if it's too perfect.
Yeah.
If it's all the balance is all very correct on the inside and out. But I love that. Love the flare and love the darkness on the inside.
Thank you.
It's really beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful job. Any more questions? Oh. I've got a question while the microphone's travelling.
Okay.
Did you get a tattoo?
Did I get a tattoo?
Yeah, because
like
there's both
Ariana and Cynthia.
Yeah, they've all got loads of tattoos.
I
You didn't
know.
get a tattoo.
I don't have any tattoos. You have beautiful tattoos.
Well, now's your chance.
Now is my chance. The problem is I'm terrified of needles. I didn't even have any drugs when I had a baby. I'm so scared of needles.
Fair enough. It could be tricky then.
So, I just have a quick question about, this was part 1 of 2.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for part 2 already. But when you're shooting 2 films at the same time, does it make it more straightforward because you're running them both together, or infinitely more complex, especially if there's a difference in the look between the 2 films as well?
Well, the second movie, there's a passage of time that happens for the second movie, and movie 2 is a much darker movie. And even in this movie, we start in the brightest of bright worlds. We start with Glinda in her bubble, and we're day exterior for the first 3 reels of the movie, I think, almost 40 minutes of the movie. And then we start to get darker and darker as the stakes get higher. And movie 2 is a different level of darkness. And so we didn't shoot in order. We had Jeff Goldblum for 4 weeks, and he's in a huge chunk of movie 2 as well. And so having to track almost 5 hours of movie or 4.5 hours of movie when throughout that, and remember and keep reminding myself, okay, this is where we need to be. And that's where the one-word sort of descriptions that I have in my script that John gives me, the one-word emotions, really help, because if I feel lost, I've got my map, my emotional map, and I can just look at those words and go, okay, this is where we are supposed to be. This is it's my map.
So the scheduling was actually you were shooting both films at the same time?
Yeah, we'd shoot out sets, or if we didn't shoot out sets, we were shooting out actors.
Wow.
Actually, Jeff's the only actor we had to shoot out.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive, because that is, like you say, it's tracking that whole timeline.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Any more questions? Oh.
Hello. So you were talking about, this is kind of like a general question rather than about specifically Wicked, but you said that you grew up watching musicals and you love musicals, and you've done 4 in a row with Tick, Tick, Boom and In the Heights, and they're all, like, I love them. They're beautiful. And I feel like you can feel the love that you have for musicals in the films. It's like a 2-parter. If you could just shoot musicals for the rest of your career, would you be happy with that? What would be your dream musical to shoot as a movie?
I think I just shot my dream musical. But I mean, I think musicals are the greatest genre. You have such creative freedom. They are a full expression of feeling and emotion, and you can do anything with light. I mean, I love musicals, and because my family didn't have much money, they put my sister and I into child acting when I was about 5. And so I fell in love with light, and it is everything to me. And so when I would watch the lighting guys, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what cinematography was. I was 5, 6, 7 years old. And then we moved to Los Angeles when I was 10 because my sister started to have bigger jobs. And so we moved to LA, and my parents would pick me up after school. And I would sit in the soundstage. I was supposed to be doing my homework, and I just watched the lighting guys light. And I'd watch the grips push the dolly, and I just was like, I want to do that. And when I was 15, I had my last audition for this movie called While You Were Sleeping. It was a Sandra Bullock movie, and there was a sister role in it. And it was my 7th audition. It was between me and the girl who got it. And after my last audition, my mom and I went for a walk on the beach in Santa Monica. And I said to my mom, Mom, I don't want to be an actress. I want to be a cinematographer. And I looked down, and there was this little gray and white feather. And I picked it up. And I still have it. And feathers are so important in this movie. And my mom said she knew, and she said, let's figure out what to do to make your dream come true. And I started doing still photography and living in the darkroom, printing my own prints. And then when it was time to apply to film school, she made me walk my application into USC, and she's like, Alice deserves to go here, but we don't have the money to send her here. And 2 weeks later, I had a full scholarship to school. And so I go from, like, I've been in the face of no my whole life. I mean, and then to get to shoot Wicked, like, it's a complete dream come true. So that's a very long answer to, and I met John Chu at school, and I mean, I feel like, I just feel incredibly grateful, and I love the human beings I get to work with every day. And honestly, if I just work with John Chu for the rest of my life, I'm happy with that, whatever he wants to do.
Amazing, thank you.
I've got just 2 lines, from reviews that I caught that I might just sum it up. It's joyful to witness a story made so thoughtfully, helmed by people who care about it so very much. And Wicked is everything cinema should be. Congratulations, Alice Brooks ASC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I give you a hug?